It's Karl Brauer, Executive Analyst at iSeeCars.com, and I want to talk today about vehicle recalls. I think we've all heard the term vehicle recall, and we probably don't associate it with very good things because some of the recalls in the past that have made big headlines have been pretty destructive and dangerous and scary. But it's important to know that whether it's a headline-making recall or one that you've never heard of, but maybe you get a notice in the mail, you really should address it. Okay, these are all safety related. If there's a recall for a vehicle, that means there's a safety related issue and you need to take it in and have it addressed because we don't want unsafe vehicles out there. You can always check if there's an open recall on your car by using the VIN, that's the vehicle identification number, and you can go to a site like NHTSA or even iSeeCars.com and enter your VIN and you'll be able to look up which recalls have been issued on your car. And you should even be able to see if there's any open recalls on it. You can certainly do that at the dealer. The dealer can tell you with the VIN whether or not you've had recalls that are unaddressed. And of course, they're free to address. So going to the dealer to address a recall is a free service at all times because, again, this relates to safety and working with the government. The automakers want to issue these recalls, get the consumers who own the cars into the dealerships and have them addressed so that the car is safe. So we just did a study on the 25 most and least recalled cars. And we were able to take our crack data team who could analyze all the NHTSA data and how many recalls have been happening to different makes and different models over time. And not only determine how many recalls have occurred, but to see a pattern that indicates how many will occur. So what this study does is it doesn't just say which recalled cars are at the top of the list for the most recalls, it's which cars have the most projected recalls, in this case, over a 30-year time span. So we're assuming typical lifespan for a car is 30 years maximum, and this will be how many recalls we project each car to have over that 30-year time span. And to start out and give you some context, the average car has 3.2 recalls over that 30-year lifespan. That's what we were able to determine when we looked at all the data. But we were also able to determine cars that have far fewer recalls over a 30-year lifespan and far more recalls over a 30-year lifespan. And that's what we've done here, and that's what we're going to discuss right now. Let's touch on some highlights from this study just to kind of give you a sense of what we saw. The Porsche Taycan is an electric car, and it's projected to have the most recalls of any vehicle. Tesla's entire model line occupies 4 of the 7 slots, top 7 slots for most recalled cars. And Lucid is in number 5. Now, if you're noticing a trend here between the Porsche Taycan, the Lucid, and the 4 Teslas, yes, they're all electric cars. And yes, electric cars do show up at a higher rate of recalls than non-electric cars. Maybe this is because we're still early in the electric car evolution and the manufacturers are still figuring things out. But regardless, they tend to show up high on the list of most recalled cars. 6 of the top 7 cars were, like I said, EVs, but when you take over-the-air recalls into account, these are recalls that can be addressed without physically going to the dealership, as we were just talking about. Usually these can happen while you're asleep at night and the car's sitting in the garage below you or next to you, in my case, below me. And you never even know that the recall was addressed, and you certainly didn't have to make an appointment and go to a dealer. So over-the-air, sometimes it's referred to as OTA recalls. These OTA recalls are much more convenient, but they're still recalls relating to vehicle safety. So are over-the-air recalls less troublesome and time-consuming than non-over-the-air recalls? Yes. Would it be better if there were no recalls over-the-air or otherwise for a car? Yes, that would still be better because up until the recall is addressed over-the-air or in person at the dealer, there's a safety issue with the car, and we don't want safety issues with cars. If you're looking to understand what are the least recalled cars, Mini, Lexus, Mercedes-Benz, and Audi are among the least recalled brands. But we're going to get into some of the specific models in a second here. It is worth again mentioning that when you have the over-the-air recalls considered on the top 25 most recalled cars, all 4 of the Teslas fall out of that list. So does the Rivian that was in the list, the Rivian R1S, and the Lucid Air that was at number 5 drops to number 25, barely making the list. Ironically, or interestingly, the Porsche Taycan, the most recalled car, still is at the top of the list, even when you take over-the-air recalls into account. So apparently Porsche isn't issuing or executing any recalls through over-the-air technology. All right, so let's take a look at the list of the most recalled cars. And as I said, the Porsche Taycan is right there at the top. We said that the average car has 3.2 recalls over a 30-year lifespan. The Porsche Taycan is projected to have 70.7, yes, 70.7 recalls over the course of its lifespan. Next is the Tesla Model Y at 66.9, the Tesla Model 3 at 60.7, and then the Porsche Panamera, first non-EV on the list, at 43.1, the Lucid Air at 40.1, and the Tesla Model S at 38.5. Right behind it, the Tesla Model X at 37.6. The Lincoln Aviator, and that's down to 26. The Genesis GV70 is 22.3. And number 10, making the top 10 list, was the Kia Telluride at 22.2. So again, these cars all have 22 or more projected lifetime recalls, 70.7 in the case of the Taycan, compared to 3.2 for the average vehicle. So that's a lot of recalls and a lot of hassle. And again, you're not going to say that you're going to see these recalls in 1 year or 2 years. It could take all 30 years for them to hit. But still, if you owned a car for 30 years and one of them had 3.2 recalls and one of them had 70.7 recalls, you'd be dealing with one of them a lot more than the other in terms of dealership appointments and scheduling and waiting in waiting rooms, right? We'll run through the rest of the 25 real quickly here. From 11 through 25, you have the Ford Maverick, the Rivian R1S, the Kia Sorento plug-in hybrid, the Ram 1500 Classic, which is, of course, kind of the leftover one they sell next to the newer Ram, which is next to it. The Ram 1500 is next. Volkswagen Atlas, the Kia K5, the Volkswagen Atlas Cross Sport, the Ford F-150, and the Ford Bronco at number 20. And then the last 5 are the Porsche 911, Kia EV6, Ford Bronco Sport, the Ford Explorer, and the Kia Sorento. And one thing to note here is you might have noticed there's 1 or 2, or I guess in this case, 5 Fords on this list. And Ford as a brand has had to kind of struggle with car launches and challenges on getting those vehicles out the door cleanly. And it's a bummer because when you launch something new that's cool, like the Ford Bronco, which was a very cool car, and then you start hearing about, fatal engine failures on the larger 6-cylinder model that it sold, that's a bummer. And Ford has struggled with this, and they still struggle with this. If you look by brand over the last few years, they have an outsized number of recalls at Ford. So we're hoping they can address this. We've got Jim Farley over there running the show. I think everyone there recognizes this is an issue, but they really need to figure it out and get it addressed. All right, so those are our most recalled cars. Let's go to the top 25 least recalled cars. And we're going to start out at the top with the Mini convertible. What you're going to see when you go through this list is there's a lot of, as we mentioned, Lexus and Mercedes vehicles, but there's also a lot of kind of niche special interest vehicles and performance cars too. And I think that it's because they're performance cars, they're produced in limited numbers, and maybe they're engineered and or constructed a little more carefully. Because you're going to see when we go through here that these kind of niche, small volume performance cars are among the most non-recalled cars, the least recalled cars. All right, so the Mini convertible is number 1. And by the way, the number of recalls it has is 0.2. So yes, less than a third of a recall is what it's projected to have over a 30-year time frame. Pretty impressive. And by the way, all cars, the top 25 list, it ranges from 0.2 to 0.6. So every one of the cars on this list is projected to have less than 1 recall over the course of its 30-year lifespan. Impressive. All right, so we go Mini convertible, then we go Lexus ES 300H, then we go Lexus RX 400H, then we go Lexus NX 300H, then we go Lexus ES 250. Did we mention that Lexus was on the list a lot? In case we didn't, they are. The Audi TTS, not the Audi TT, the Audi TTS. Interesting, not just a specialized sport coupe, but the higher performance version of a specialized sport coupe. Mazda MX-5 Miata RF, again, a kind of niche, lifestyle, somewhat performance-oriented, fun car, certainly not a high-volume model, and there it is at number 7. Mercedes-Benz CLA 8, Mercedes-Benz GLA 9, Mercedes-Benz GLC 10. Did we mention Mercedes is on here a lot too, in case you missed that? Number 11, Audi TT RS, another high performance version of a limited performance car, the Audi TT, the RS. The previous one was the S, the TS. The Mercedes-Benz AMG GT, another performance-oriented car. Mercedes-Benz GLE, the BMW X5M, and the Lexus UX 250H. So this is up to number 15 now. Again, do we have a lot of Lexus and Mercedes? Yes. And do we have a lot of performance cars, especially if they aren't the Lexus or Mercedes? Yes, we do. Another interesting trend that we noticed in the pattern of recalls. We'll go from 16 with the Audi RS5 Sportback, another performance car, to the Lexus RX 450 HL and the Lexus RX 500H, and then the BMW X3M, not the regular X3, the X3M, then the Mercedes-Benz GLS, Nissan 370Z, another performance car, Mercedes-Benz A-Class, Lincoln MKZ Hybrid, interesting, the only Lincoln on the list, Mercedes-Benz GLB, and finally, last but not least, the Buick Regal Tour X, which I don't think is even in production now. It isn't, but one Buick makes the list right there at 25. So again, there were your 25 most and least recalled cars. A lot of Lexus, Mercedes, and performance cars on the least recalled list, and a fair amount of electric cars and Fords on the most recalled list. And again, real quick, if you look at cars with the most safety recalls, excluding over-the-air recalls, that's where all the Teslas go away, the Rivian goes away, and the Lucid Air drops from 5 to 25, barely making the list. And you start to get in a new set of cars, things like the Porsche Macan, the Kia Stinger, the Kia Carnival, the Lincoln Corsair. So a few more cars make the list because you clear out the electrics when you have over-the-air updates. Those seem to be addressable, at least through over-the-air updates from Tesla and Rivian and Lucid. So you're a consumer, you're thinking of buying a car, you don't want to deal with recalls. You certainly can have a big influence on how many recalls you're going to face based on what kind of car you buy. If you go to iSeeCars, you want to check this study out, you can look at these lists to your heart's desire. And confirm that the car you're looking at is either on the list of least recalled cars or certainly not on the list of most recalled cars. And that's today's topic. We're going to have more studies as we always do, and we're always looking at interesting parts of the market. We've got a great data team that's able to break this stuff down and help consumers when they're shopping for their next car. Until then, we'll talk to you next time.